What's happening? It's your boy B-High Radio Shout, and I'm in here kicking flavor. I'm talking about big major flavor with the progress report right now as we speak. Let's get it. It's hot.
The progress report.
All right, man. What's going on? It's your girl Lala Shepherd. This is the progress report.
Hey, Boss Brit, the most lit.
What's up? It's your girl DJ Excel.
And we got B-Hat in the building. What's going
happening?
on?
What's happening, man?
Hey,
Feeling
what
good,
it do?
feeling great
Hey,
in this thing.
we gotta step up our radio voice.
We really do
Oh,
right now.
God.
How you doing, too? Yeah. Right now.
He is not about to show us out.
We're live at the progress report.
And we got to add our special effects and our sound somewhere in this interview, man. We got to step it up.
Man, I'm happy as hell to be in this thing.
Yeah,
I've been seeing y'all getting busy for a long time in this thing too now.
Absolutely.
Okay then.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
B-Hat, we appreciate you for being here. You're definitely one of the, personalities that I look up to.
Appreciate
You know what I mean? So it
appreciate
means a lot.
Means a lot coming from you, shoot.
For sure. So look, man, talk to us. Talk about, what it is that you do exactly for the people that may not know.
For folks that don't know, I mean, basically, I got a show called The 10 Spot on Hot 107.9. I break a lot of the new music and new talent that come into the city. Mm-hmm. I've been doing that show for like the last couple years, and I started off in radio back in 2005 after I graduated from Clark Atlanta University. I came in as an intern, then I worked my way up to board op, then producer, then on the air, then I started doing interviews. My big homie DJ Sense from the affiliates, he was the one that gave me the game early on and told me what I needed to do. So I basically just followed the blueprint that he left out for me, and I mean, it's been going down ever since. When it comes to artists, I mean, my main thing is just to create a platform for them to be able to blow up off of. You see what I'm saying? A lot of times you got different artists out here that don't have platforms to showcase their talent. And with me, I got a pretty decent ear, I would like to think, when it comes to new music and stuff like that. So when I hear the music, if it's jamming, I'm going to rock with it. If it's not jamming, you need to go work on it. You see what I'm saying? But most of the time, folks, it's jamming, so I can give them that opportunity to speak to the city and, grow their brand.
So how do you filter through the music? Because I mean, just as a DJ, so many people like hit me up, so I can just imagine you when you got a platform like that.
See, for me, I got a home field advantage. So I'm from the Westside of Atlanta. I grew up there. So a lot of the music that come out of the city might be folks that are literally either related to me, kin to me, or folks I went to school with and stuff like that. So it's not that many degrees of separation between me and a new artist or whatever. So a lot of times you got to listen to your folk you grew up with when they say, hey, man, we got a record, we got this going on. So you're going to definitely get at a listen. And if it's jamming, then you're going to go ahead and roll with it. So that's one of the main things. And then also, one of the favorite stories I like to tell is like with Rich Homie Quan. You would see the name going up and down your timeline. You would keep on hearing folks saying the folks' name everywhere you go. We'd be in a conversation like this and that name would come up. You'd be like, okay, I need to pay attention to what's going on with that artist because the name keeps on popping up. Then when you hear the music and when it matches with what you hear folks saying about them, then you know you definitely need to work with that artist.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what's considered jamming? What's a jamming record?
I put it like this, you got to feel it. When you hear that record, you're going to feel what's going on with it. If it makes you want to dance, if it make you want to slap somebody, if it make you want to whip up something, then you know that it's a jamming record. You see what I'm saying? But if it don't move you at all, and within like about the first 20 seconds of that song, if it's gonna move you or not. And if it doesn't move you physically or just, internally or something like that, then it ain't really jamming like that. But then sometimes it might just be the atmosphere. So it might be a song that I don't like, but if it come on in here and y'all all grooving to it, I'm like, you know what? This song ain't too bad. I'm gonna go ahead and rock with y'all on it. And then sometimes, because you can't have that kind of ego to say, I know, you still got to be able to go with what your surroundings are saying and what the people are saying.
That's true.
Sure. So what got you interested in radio and hosting and stuff like that, from coming up when you was little?
Well, see, I started off as a rapper like many
I knew
of us.
it.
And I was one of the best ones. Don't get it messed up. But it wasn't no beehives out there, okay? It wasn't no beehives out there that would actually give you an opportunity to showcase your talent. So back then, trying to get into the game was pretty much not happening. You only had B103 and Hot 107.9 at that time, which was 97.5. So nobody was really giving folks that outlet to really just get up through there. And, if you know how this game goes, there's a lot of nepotism in there. So if you don't know certain people and you're not in certain crowds and you ain't got that cosign from folks, or you just don't have the money, then your career ain't really gonna go as far as you thought it was gonna go. Luckily, I was in school for radio at the time because that was my plan B. I was like, you know what? I'ma just do radio then. If I can't do the music like I want to do it, then I'm gonna do radio. But also I took that spirit into doing what I did with radio because I remember wanting to rap. So when I see other folks that want to rap, I opened up the door to them because I remember what that would have meant to me as an aspiring artist if somebody that was on would have said, hey, come on in here. I hear your song, you jamming. Let me give you an opportunity. So that was one of the main things that made me push it forward. But I mean, going to school, that was what it was for me. I was either going to be an educator or I was going to be a radio person. So one of my friends that I was in class with over there at Clark, he was already working at the radio station as an assistant salesperson, a guy named Ryan Moore. And I'd be in school just cutting up like I normally do or whatever. And then he was like, you know what, B, you funny. You need to come up to the radio station to get an internship. And it's so funny because back then it wasn't no paid internships. First of all, when I went in there, I thought I had an internship, but what I really had was a volunteership. Okay, and that was some wild stuff. So I looked up, and every time they would call me for my internship, they was calling me to come and feed the homeless. So they called me on Thanksgiving to feed the homeless. I was
So
like,
you
okay.
trying out at something
Exactly.
that don't got.
Come on. They called me again on Christmas to feed the homeless. And then they were like, if you don't come out here and do these events, you can't be no intern.
Oh,
So then they
man.
called me again on King Day to feed the homeless. I ain't about to do this. I quit. I'm done with this. But it just so happened I wound up going out to an event where they had a Super Bowl party. And I met the promotions director at that time. And I was like, hey, do you mind if I intern inside the building? Because this volunteer stuff ain't really what I signed up for.
Right.
And once I got inside that building, it was another 2 years. Well, it was another about a year and a half to almost 2 years of interning inside the building looking crazy before I finally got a job. Then when I got a job, I was running the board on the classic station and working at the jazz station. They wouldn't even let me over that high early on.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was just, when you talk about taking the steps, I took every last one of them. It wasn't no easy way. Yeah. But that's what also builds that character and that humility, and you understand what folks is going through.
And you start being able to run the whole damn station.
Exactly. Oh, it ain't nothing that you can't do. You see what I'm saying? You know how to do everything.
Yeah. And I do see a lot of people that work in radio. They have done it from interning and worked their way. Because I was even looking into it as a DJ, but then I was like, damn, like maybe I missed my chance unless you was interning. Now you can't even intern unless you're coming from college.
Well, it's still ways around it though, because I mean, just like what y'all got going on here, when you got a platform like this, you can slide into pretty much wherever you want to go because folks recognize and respect what you got going on. The main thing is, I tell folks, because you know I teach over there at Clark too, so one of the main things that I tell my students is that with the music industry back in the day, if you wanted to be a rapper, you had to get a deal with a record company. Back in the day, if you wanted to do radio, you had to go and work at a radio station. But those are not the cases no more.
That's
if I want to
true.
rap, I can put my music up and do what I want to do. If I want to talk, I can put my stuff up on SoundCloud. I can stream my stuff and still make just as much noise as the majors or what they call the majors. You see what I'm saying? Because can't nobody really stop you from being successful except for yourself.
It definitely is a new time.
Different time, boy.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is.
Now you just brought up the fact that you professed over at Clark. Now you went to Clark as well.
Yeah.
So talk about your experience going to a all-black school, and then talk about just you going back to do teaching there.
Well, see, it was pretty much a lot of the same experience because, I'm from the city, so I went to all black schools all my life. Kai Heights Elementary, Young Middle School, and Mays High. Then I went over there to Clark. And when I got over there to Clark, my old professor, Professor Will, he was one of my professors that kind of gave me a lot of the game when I was a student over there at the school. That's how I knew that digital was where it was at. When a lot of folks were just doing radio, they did not know that the internet is where it was heading at the time. So folks would be more focused on trying to get on the air versus trying to actually create content. So that was one of the things that gave me an edge versus everybody else, because everybody else was worried about, I got to be on the air, I got to be on the air, I got to do this. And I was like, well, I already know what the future is going to be with this because I learned that in school, that it was going to be the internet. But what we call the internet now then is what we call streaming now. You see what I'm saying? So the terminology kind of changed, but it's basically the same concept. And what happened was he wound up going to West Georgia to be a teacher. And nobody was running the Clark Atlanta radio program over there. So that's when he called me, because once again, when I was at Clark, I was debating between going into education or radio, because I knew a lot of educators in my family and stuff like that. So I said, shoot, if I'm gonna get me a job with this degree, 9 times out of 10 it'll be with an education degree. But when Ryan came out of nowhere and got me that internship, because at that time, now understand this, I'm from the city, but I didn't even know where the radio station was at, because we
That
wasn't
happens a
really,
lot.
because you ain't exposed to none of that
Right.
stuff. You just growing up in the hood, just doing what you do, so you
Exactly.
don't know what none of this stuff is.
Right.
You just see it here, and it's a part of your life, but you don't know nobody that worked there. You don't know nobody. So for me, having him be able to change what my trajectory will wind up being, because I wound up doing radio. But long story short, Will called me when he went to West Georgia, and they ain't had nobody running WSTU, the college radio station or the program over there as far as teaching it, because he couldn't teach it no more because he was in West Georgia. So he was like, B, would you come back and teach? I was like, hell yeah, I'll come back and teach, because that was one of my initial passions as well,
That's what's up.
as just being the on-air personality. So I get a chance to get the best of both worlds. But one of the beautiful things about it is being able to give them the whole game that nobody really gave me. You only had a few folks that really sold into me and said, all right, B, this is what you could do to be great. If you add this to what you're doing, then you'll take off, you'll blow up. Since that's one of the only people that really just said, all right, B, you do this, this, and that. And a lot of times you need that guidance coming into the game, because who's going to tell you that if you don't know nobody?
Right.
And it's crazy that it came full circle for you.
Yeah,
You know what I
It did,
mean?
but it was also part of the plan, because I was planning on teaching anyway.
But I be saying that, like, when you had the the vision, you don't know how it's gonna work out, but it'll work out a way
Exactly.
you never even imagined it. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Are there some artists that you work at, like, I'm sorry, are there some artists that you work with that you help create a bigger platform for them?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much a lot of the artists that done came out of the city in the last few years, in the last probably 5-6 years, they had to come and see me first, because wasn't nobody else gonna let them on the radio at that time when they were just coming out of the street. So I mean, you got your Day Days, one of his first
21.
radio interviews, Date 21, because at that time he was just really an internet sensation at that time. So once he came in there, I was like, man, this boy 21 Savage got the internet on fire, and his music is hitting. Bankroll, he was over there killing the stuff in the streets, and then he was from the west side of town too, so I could relate to that. And I'm a strong proponent of the folks that from the side of town that I'm from, because you got to reach back and just mess with the people that come from where you come from in order to keep the culture moving forward.
That's right.
If you don't do it, then guess what? Who's gonna do it?
Exactly.
And if nobody does it, then won't nobody be coming out of that side of town no more. But it's a lot of different artists, man. I mean, I would just see them and I just reach out to them, tell them to come on in, or they might reach out to me and I'd be like, come on in.
That's
And
love.
when they blow, it's one of those good feelings too, because it's like, you had a part in that.
And
know,
you
was
believed
able
it
to,
before,
exactly,
right?
you believed
For
it.
sure.
And that was another one of the things too that I tell folks, when you're doing interviews with people, what you want to make sure that you do is that you show them folks the respect that they deserve and that you would want to receive back. You see what I'm saying? You don't want to have nobody on your show looking crazy.
Yeah.
Now there are people that can get over on the shock value and stuff like that too, because that does work. The clickbait, if you want to go through the roof with that stuff, you can do that and win big time with it. But the issue is you got to be willing to deal with the pressure that comes with that too. Me personally, I'm trying to have a good time in this thing. I ain't trying to be having no
definitely.
pressure
Likewise.
out here in these streets. So it's
I
like,
agree.
you know what? I'm in here to show some love and keep it real and keep it moving at
Definitely.
the same time.
Definitely.
Have you thought about being an A&R?
Not really. I mean, I would if the opportunity presented itself. I'd probably be able to help some folks out, because I pretty much got a good ear for music. I know what I want to hear. I know what sounds good and stuff like that. But that's not really been one of my main passions, because I don't like to. I don't really care to be in the mix too tough. You see what I'm saying? I do my talking and settings
be in the
like
cut.
this. You see what I'm saying? No, I ain't got time for that stuff, because I ain't with all the industry
I get
extra
it.
stuff. You see what I'm saying? It's like I
Yeah.
talk to folks when I'm working, when I'm doing things like this, because I enjoy the talk. Don't get it messed up. I
Absolutely.
love socializing and talking, but it's those industry settings that I really don't got too much love
Okay.
for.
Respect.
Okay.
Now talk about some of your most memorable moments on just some of your memorable interviews. You know,
Okay.
I can name a few myself, but I
Yeah.
want you to speak from your experience.
One of my favorite ones was with Banner and Bone Crusher. And Banner came in there, he was doing his interview. We was talking about pumping your black fist and all of that good stuff. And at that time, Bone, he was working at the Boom station around, you know how the stations are set up at the station. So Bone was leaving out, and he peeked in the studio, to just chuck a deuce before he left. And he saw Banner in there. And see, what I didn't know is that Bone and Banner had pretty much came up together in the game, and they hadn't spoken a few years. So when they saw each other, it was like a family reunion in there.
Oh, that's what's up.
And the information that they laid out in that
Is-
interview was
yeah.
kind of like life-changing for anybody that really want to learn something about the industry and understand how to come up, what happens, the psyche of artists when they start seeing money, going from being broke to being millionaires and stuff like that. They really laid that out during that interview, and it helped me understand a lot of stuff, because one of the things that I used to like to do with my interviews, I would bring folks in there so I can ask them questions that I needed answers to.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm
Absolutely.
saying? I figure if I need answers to this question, some other folk that need answers too. So
Yeah, I
I
think we
bring them
tried
in
to
there
do
and
that
I ask them what I needed to doggone know. Other interviews that I enjoyed, I mean, Pastor Troy came in there and snapped. See, me personally, that was another thing for me. When I started doing the old school interviews, this was like long before folks even knew that it was a platform or a base for old school artists. But common sense will tell you that, guess what? If that artist sold 1 million records back in 1995, it's still 1 million folks out there looking for them.
That's a fact.
So the question was, who was going to put the content out there to get you caught back up with your favorite artist? I wanted to talk to them because I grew up listening to them. You see what I'm saying? So when you bring them in there and they start talking, you know, your DJ Pauls, your Pastor Troy's, I mean, you know, well, Freeway Rick Ross, even though he a dope dealer, but he was one of my favorite interviews as well because he had a lot of insight and knowledge. And some of them, after a while, you done did so many, it's kind of hard to recollect all of them because you're doing the next one along the way. Yeah. But those were some of my favorite ones that I can think off the top of my head.
That's real. That's real. I enjoyed the one with Webby too.
Oh,
That
Webby's a fool. See, Webby, and see, now I seen you do yours with Webby too.
For
That
sure.
was a powerful interview as well.
For sure.
And see, with Webby's a star, man. So, I mean, he know how to get on the mic and show out and give you what you need.
That's a
He's
fact.
going to do what he need to do, man. So, I mean, some of these artists are stars. They hardcore stars. They know how to talk. So when they get in front of that mic, you ain't even got to interview them. Like I tell folks, the best interviews a lot of times are the ones where you just jump in there with a question and jump out and let folks talk because they coming in there to talk. And a lot of times, you know, we will get to a point where we'll get to talking. Well, early on in my career, I was doing a lot of damn talking, and I ain't realized that, you know, what the hell was going on. But you got to let these folks express themselves, and when they do that, all kinds of stuff come out. But then you got some folks that have things that they just flat out want to say when they come in there. Yeah. So you got to let them say what they need to say because they were like, yeah, I'm doing the interview with B-Hop, but this is what I'm really coming in here to say.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And then you'll find that out later on. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, you had an agenda coming in the book?
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
That's real.
No, that's fast.
Yeah.
Oh man, you got a beautiful family, man.
Thank you.
Talk about your family life, and you just said that you really don't, you know, pretty much partake in all the industry events and stuff like that, and I totally understand it. But talk about balancing family in this.
Well, see, I always been a family first person, and that's probably part of the reason why I don't ever go out like that because I'm always with my family when I ain't working because I work a lot. So when I ain't working, I'm with my children. I got 3 girls with a boy on the way, and my wife, I done known her since we were in middle school. So
Oh, wow.
That's that real love.
That's what's
So
up.
exactly, and it's easier to deal with folks that know you.
That's
you see what I'm
right.
saying?
Yeah.
I ain't be hot to her. She like that nigga Brian. You see what I'm saying? So she like, I remember when you wasn't shit. I ain't think you was gonna be shit. And you surprised the hell out of me too. And like, okay, you see what I'm saying? But that's how it is. But we grew up together, so for us to be together all this time, man, I mean, she done supported me through everything. I done supported her through everything. And in this life and in this game, you need a companion that's gonna be down with you the whole time.
Yeah.
Because
That's a
I mean,
fact.
it can get dark out here, it can get hard out here. You don't know where it's gonna go. You don't know where you gonna go. But if you know you got that foundation, and like they say, that kind of keeps you centered. You know, okay, my babies need me. I got to do this for my kids. I got to put food on the table. I got to provide, but also I got to be there for them.
Absolutely.
Outside of this. You can't get so wrapped up into being somebody and being this caricature of yourself that you forget to be somebody's daddy and somebody's husband.
All right.
You
That's
know.
real.
Beautiful black man, man.
Right, now that's what's
Take
up.
notes, man. Yeah, we need more black men like
Respect.
this.
Respect.
Yeah.
Now, Solo, we like to ask everybody that comes to the show, you know, how would they define the word progress? Since our show is about progression and getting better, so what does the word progress mean to you?
Well, first of all, the name of y'all show, The Progress Report, is a powerful name. You see what I'm saying? Because that was one of the main things that I based my whole career off of. Every year, if I looked up and I ain't made no progress over the next year, that's when I felt it would probably be time for me to quit. So every year, I had to find myself a little further. It didn't matter if I was a lot further along or just a little further along. As long as I wasn't in the same spot that I was in last year at that same time, I was making progress. And with that being said, you know, you take any and all progress because, I mean, it don't just blow up overnight in a lot of different cases. So you got to really just go with the flow and take your time. But I think when I think about progress, it's basically seeing the results of that grind that you've been putting in. When you've been grinding for a long time, you'll see those results start to show up. And then a lot of times you'll get to grinding so hard, you won't even realize where the hell you done got to until you out in the street and folks know who the hell you is. You're like, when the hell did this happen? You see what I'm saying? Because you've been working so hard, you didn't know that. And then when you're dealing with this internet stuff, you don't know who's really paying attention. You see them numbers, but you don't really know that folks is really watching it because you don't have a live audience in there with you at the time. So when you go out there in the street, folks like, I watched that interview. I saw when you did that. You're like, I didn't even know you were watching that.
Believe
because you don't like nothing that I do. So how the hell I supposed to know? You see what I'm saying?
Shit.
So that's how it go when you know that you're making progress too. And another thing too, you want to make the kind of progress that makes folks proud and make people want to be involved in helping you make more progress. So that's one of those things that when I think about the word progress, it's just really trying to better yourself every day and get yourself to another level than you was at the day before.
Dope. I have a question.
What's up?
So, I know you've seen a lot of shows throughout your years, some that failed, some that really went through. What's some advice you could give us and other podcasts and radios, to take it to the next level? What makes a good show other than clickbait, that really makes good content and stuff like that? What advice would you give?
I'm going to tell you what that boy Fiend from No Limit told me off camera when we was talking. He just said, be high, keep on swinging. He was like, every hit ain't gonna be no home run, okay? Right. He was like, just keep on swinging. Sometimes you're gonna have to hit a single, sometimes you hit a double, sometimes you hit a triple, sometimes you hit a home run, sometimes you have to bunt the ball. But he was like, you just keep on taking them little steps because all of them little steps equal up to big steps and real progress at the same time. And you have to be humble enough to just take your time and not be worried about what everybody else is doing. You just do the best you can do. And when you do your interviews and you do your content, you do it like it's the last time you're gonna do it. And then you document history. You don't want to just come in there and talk shit. You want to document something that'll be evergreen. And when I say evergreen, that means it's going to be relevant 100 years from now. So if you go on YouTube right now, we can watch an interview with Malcolm X saying stuff that's still relevant to the world that we're living in right now. So basically what he said, and I said this in the class the other day, I said those are slick podcasts that Malcolm X has online right now that you can watch and you can get knowledge from to this day, and it's evergreen information. So you want to make it where every time you open up your mouth, it don't matter if they listening to it in 2020 or 2070, it still is relevant to folks at that time. And then also you want to talk about what's going on in the culture, because also we are keeping a record of what's going on. So when you think about the music, they would say one of the main things is you think about recording. A recording and a record is supposed to be a documentation of the time that we living in. So that's where music kind of got away from. But if you look at folks like Goody Mob and Outkast and stuff like that, their records documented America at that time. So if you go back to 95 and 96, 97, and you wanted to know what people were going through in the country at that time, you can listen to those records because those records explained what the culture was standing for and going through at that time. So what you want 50 years from now, when folks want to know what was going on in Atlanta in 2020, they need to be listening to the progress report and saying, okay, they documented that moment in time of Atlanta and and it's here to stay.
Okay, dope.
Nah, that's great, man. Thank you again so much for being here with us, man. We appreciate you. Let the people know your social media accounts and where they can find you at.
Okay, BHIGH ATL. That's BHIGH ATL. That's Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Any one of them, you can hit me anytime. I'm always there for it.
For sure. All right.